There's 10 things I want you to be doing before thinking about entrepreneurship.
So this is fabulous advice, and I 100% agree with this.
There's no manual out there that teaches you how to do these things.
Sounds hard, but I think it's necessary, right? It makes sense.
100%.
Okay, I'm sitting at a table full of successful entrepreneurs, and this week we're talking about how to bet on yourself and make the jump from employee to entrepreneur. Before we start going into it, we're going to play a quick video from Patrick Bet-David. Let's see what he has to say.
There's 10 things I want you to be doing before thinking about entrepreneurship. I remember when I worked at Bally Total Fitness and I had a job and it was comfortable and I had a salary and it was good for me. And I wanted to become a business owner. I wanted to become an entrepreneur, but there's a few things that I had to do before I made that decision. I'm going to cover with you here today. And by the way, I want you to know it ain't for everybody. So when I go through it, you may say, I can't do that. I can't do this. Well, maybe it ain't for you. So let me get right into it here. 10 things. Number one, you got to learn how to self-motivate. I get too many messages, man, that people tell me, how do you motivate yourself? Can you say, actually, I get Snapchat messages. Mario, people send me messages saying, Pat, can you give me a motivational content today for me to get motivated? Like, if you don't know how to self-motivate yourself, cross this thing out. If you do not know how to self-motivate yourself and get yourself fired up like this, business isn't for you.
Agreed.
What do you think?
I think that it's all about self-motivation, because when you're an entrepreneur, nobody is telling you what to do. Nobody's motivating you. Nobody's helping you get started. You know, maybe you have a wife or a husband or kids that are like, hey, I'm hungry. That would be your self-motivation. But if you don't have any kind of motivating tools and you don't have the ability to self-motivate, then you are dead on DOE. Dead on entrepreneur.
Yeah, even better.
What do you think?
I agree. I think the root of being self-motivated is what leads people to entrepreneurship, because you realize, for one thing, that you can do a lot more than what your position at a job may require of you.
What do you think, Sonie?
100% agree. Most people want to be entrepreneurs. Guess what? It's not for everybody. And he's 100% right. If you can't get up in the morning, go work out, make your bed, the basic things, how are you supposed to do this for your business?
That's right.
I agree. And I think being an employee is the easy way out, and it's easy to get comfortable doing it. Yeah. Whereas being an entrepreneur, you're actually put on the spot, and people, unfortunately, feel the pain of that sometimes and don't make it through.
Number two, save, save, save. Save your money. I saved my money when I worked at Bally's. I was working at Bally's, but I was saving that money. I was setting aside the money because I knew long term I was going to be in sales. I didn't know what I was going to sell, and I didn't know if I was going to stay as an employee forever, because I wanted to figure out a way to make more money. I didn't know sales was it, but I did know that I needed my money in case if I went fully commission, what am I going to do if I go fully commission? Save, save,
So
save.
that's interesting to me, because I wouldn't necessarily think of that part of it, but it's smart because
Which part, the saving money?
Yeah, like if you're going to jump into entrepreneurship, obviously, I think a lot of people think you jump in and hit the ground running, and you're like, oh, I'm going to open my business and start raking the money in.
So a lot of people do think that way, and those are the people that fail. So I know Sonie, who I've known for many years. She's an amazing entrepreneur. Why don't you tell us what you do as an entrepreneur really quickly, so our audience knows who you are?
So I own 3 Budget Blinds franchises in Bergen County. So I've been doing this for about 12 years now. So Window Treatments were a small franchise, and basically, when we bought the franchise, you had to have money in the bank to go in to do it. You had to fund the business. We also needed cash flow. We bought a brand new business. There is no money coming in the door. You have to make that money yourself, right? So guess what? If we didn't make money that month, we had to go into our savings to pay for our mortgage, our house, everything else, right? So
Stressful.
you need to save, right? So I talk to a lot of people who are looking at buying franchises, and I always say to them, if you're going in and you don't have kids, family, the whole thing, it's easier. But if you do you have a spouse that already has a job and is keeping the job and is also has all the benefits, getting health insurance, etc., like that? Because this is the stuff you don't think about when you're going into the business.
Very
so money is huge. You either have a nice stack of it so you can get through that first year, because you don't know what's going to happen. What if you go spend all this money and then say we have a COVID again? Right? Boom, everything dies out. You do not know. This is why so many businesses fail in the beginning.
How much money do you think somebody should have saved before they jump into the entrepreneurial route?
I mean, the general rule of thumb that I kept hearing is have 6 months of the reserves, but I don't think that's enough.
Yeah, I
Depending
agree.
on what business you get into, I don't think that's enough at all.
6 months burns very,
Yeah.
very
Very
quickly.
Especially just on living expenses alone, right? Because now you have living expenses plus whatever your business is going to require.
Very true. So
Let's see what the next
What am I
tip
going to
is.
do if I go fully commission? Save, save, save. Number 3, learn how to sell. Today we had an entrepreneur that came here. He may be in the next vlog that we'll do. I don't know, Paul, if you're going to put him on there or not. We'll figure it out. But he came today. His idea was he has an app that he's designing that's for what? That's for house cleaning. So for instance, I'm in Houston. I want a house cleaner to come to my house tomorrow to clean it up. I get on there, I book them 4 hours. My house is 2,000 square feet. The pricing is going to be $120. And somebody just comes to my house. That's what he's designing. He comes here. Mario invites him to come to the office. He's flabbergasted. He's got 5 to 10 minutes with us, and he speaks for 10 minutes. You know what I asked him? I asked him the following question. Do you know how to sell? He says, I do. I said, I'm telling you, you don't know how to sell. He says, what do you mean? I said, 10 minutes you're here, you haven't asked a single question yet. You're just talking. So your business is not going to work if you don't know how to sell. You got to learn how to sell. So as an
that's a
entrepreneur,
great
if you're an
point.
employee right now, you're working wherever you're working at. If you don't learn how to sell, what do you think happens? All of a sudden you become an entrepreneur, you learn how to sell? You got to learn how to sell.
So learning how to sell, like it sounds obvious you need to know how to sell, but what does that really mean?
well, what's the first thing he said the guy did the whole time? Did you hear what he said?
Talk.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we teach our students is listen, because your customer is going to tell you how to sell to them. So you should be talking less. You should be listening more, and that's going to just unfold the whole thing. You know, did you ever go into a job interview where that person who's interviewing you just talk the whole time? And they're like, oh, great to meet you. What did they learn about you? They didn't ask you any questions. So he's 100% right.
I agree with that totally. And the big thing is, too, you have to listen, but you have to connect with your client. Whoever it is,
yeah.
your customer. You
Yeah.
need to connect with them. That's the biggest thing on sales. If you can't connect, you're not getting the sale, period.
And what's an example of connecting with your client?
You know what? Talk about something else. It's not all about the product. Like when I walk into a house, I'm like, oh my God, that paint color, what is that? I love that. Oh, who did this design? Oh, who's the designer? Who's your builder? Like you start talking to the person. Oh, wait, where'd you move from? Where are you buying? Do you have kids? What's going on? Oh, you have a dog. You know, what? Like you got to talk about and ask things so you know
Right.
what's going on in their lives to be able to make informed decisions on what they need, right?
Yeah.
And also then it's the connection with them. And then you find out, oh, I know so-and-so, I know your neighbor because you're talking, and then it snowballs.
Yep. You build that relationship.
Yeah.
And then I know specifically Sonie's business is based on a lot of referrals. I mean, so is real estate. But I know people refer her because they love her. They refer her tons and tons of business. And one of the tricks that I use is when I go into someone's house or to an office, I scan the room and I look for commonalities. So I went to Pace University. If all of a sudden I see something with the word Pace on it, that's my in, right? And then the trick is you can't always have one in. Sometimes you need multiple ins because that may not be exciting for that person. They may be like, yeah, I don't give a shit that you went to Pace.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden you see, oh, they have, a fishing pole, or they have a sports figure on the wall.
Or kids.
Or kids.
Yep.
Kids is a big one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think selling, for most people, even if they're in a 9-to-5 position, it's the stepping stone to get into any entrepreneurial position. Because depending on what you want to do, sales, for the most part, is commission-based. You are on your own, and you have to have all the traits required to run a business that you would as a salesperson.
But there's like a fine line between knowing how to sell and being like a sleazy salesperson also, right? Like I feel like people think of sales sometimes as, like you're slimy, you're selling them
100%.
something.
100%.
Well, it's like the saying goes, no one likes to be sold, but everyone loves to buy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you're right. I mean, why do they not like to be sold? Because they don't like...
And it's more about providing a solution, right? At the end
Yeah.
of the day, if you're doing sales, whether it's real estate or you're doing blinds, interior stuff, you're solving somebody's problem.
Yes.
And I think that's a
100%.
big problem with people that are new in sales. They think, oh my God, I have to make the sale, rather than going in thinking, what problem do I need to solve here?
I think that's huge, and that's one of the biggest things. You can't push the pressure on the sale. You got to connect, and you got to solve the problem. And not everybody's meant to be a salesperson. So there are people I see, they should not be salespeople. They should not be doing this. If you like to go and talk to people, you're at a bar, you're at a restaurant, and you talk to everybody beside you, you're a natural salesperson. If you go to a bar and you sit there like this, guess what? You're not a salesperson. You should not be doing this. This is not for you. You need to talk to people. And I talk to everybody. And that's why I talk to everybody. And I know you do too. And I know you do as well, because I think you're also interested about people. So if I'm at a party or wherever it is, I'm chatting up everybody, because I think it's just interesting to see what everybody does.
And to that point, it's a personality trait a little bit, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
Tony Robbins talks about this. He talks about how some people are the artist, some people are what were the other things? Like Steph Curry isn't the person to run the basketball team, but Steph Curry's great at being the artist. He's the guy that's going to go out there, make the 3-point shots, but he's not going to be a good owner of a team necessarily. Where people might feel like there's pressure to become an entrepreneur when it's just not their thing. It's not their strength. They may be stronger in doing something else that they could be just as successful in.
Well, that's where you have the balance, right? So whatever I'm good at, like I like talking, I like socializing, I like sales, right? So I hire everybody in my office to my weaknesses. So I might not be the best organized person. I might not be like doing numbers and books. So I always hire somebody to do that for me so I can be out there socializing and networking, which is what I need to do for the business, right?
Well, that's a great strength. Most entrepreneurs don't realize that. And I learned that early on. I didn't always implement it, but you get people that are strong in the areas that you're not, and you focus on the areas that you are.
Yeah. And to add to that, I think some people are more naturally sales oriented, right? Very talkative. Eric is great at this, and he laughed when he said that.
Yeah.
But I think for the people who may not be as talkative and as social, consultative sales is a different level, or at least a different grade of sales, right?
yeah.
Because there's some people who may not have that talkative, hyper energy, but there's certain sales that are more prone to consultative sales.
Yes.
So it depends on what your personality trait aligns with.
Yep.
Yeah, but I'm very big on building that relationship. When I was younger, I was like, it's the story of the I was going to say the story of the old bull and the young bull, where there's an old bull and a young bull. I'm going to change some of the pieces of the story to make it publicly correct.
Oh God.
For this video. But you have the old bull and the young bull, and they're both on the top of the mountain, and they say, oh, look at all these cows down in the pasture that they want to sell to, right? So the young bull says, I'm going to run down and find one cow, and I'm going to sell them a new, bell for their neck. And the old bull says, let's walk down and sell all the cows a bell. So the point is, as you get older, you learn strategies. And when I first started sales, I would run into a situation and I would start talking about the product or what my head wanted. Like, oh, I want to connect with this person because I want to get a better deal on something, or I want to sell them this or do whatever. What I learned is you can't do that at all. You have to just sit there, talk about anything, ask them about themselves and get to know them. And then within half an hour of your conversation, all of a sudden they're going to start asking you questions. And once that happens, you've got that in and you're good to go.
Like you said before, it's finding those commonalities and making that person comfortable, right?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, totally. All right, let's see what else he has to say.
4. Work for one. Yeah, work for one. Work under an entrepreneur. Work closely with a CEO. Shadow one. See what they do. See what's different about them. And I'm talking about one that's today an entrepreneur. I hear a lot of people that say, I work for a 72-year-old very successful entrepreneur who made a lot of his money, but he golfs every day. That's not who you want to work with. You want to work with the entrepreneur that is starving, but he's on his way up so you can learn from him.
So this is fabulous advice, and I 100% agree with this. Before we bought our franchise 10 years ago, we went and shadowed one of the most successful franchises down in Virginia and a couple others. When people come to look at buying franchises, I always tell them, come shadow me for a day. Literally, we're going to be driving in a van and going to people's houses. You're looking to spend all this money on this? You need to know, is this something you can do every day? And it's the mundane stuff that you have to do every day. And I'm sure that's with your businesses too. It's not always glamorous, okay? And people think, oh, I could do this. This is easy. But guess what? It's not that easy. So I think for people to shadow and see what everybody does on the everyday, the boring stuff, the good stuff, the bad stuff, the days you get yelled at, there's all kinds of stuff, right? So it's very, very important.
How many people that shadowed you actually, percentage-wise, went through and bought a franchise versus didn't?
I'll say about 50%.
Wow.
And some I will say they're good, and I'll let a corporate know, and then other ones I'll say no. I don't think they have it in them.
But and it's not like you're being mean by doing that.
No.
You're saving them the pain of doing something that they shouldn't do.
Yes.
And you're also saving the company that you're representing and your business.
Yes. I mean, I would love for everybody to be successful, but this is like, it's not easy. As you said, being motivated, being out on your own, having the money, having the tools to do it. We have a great support network that sets you up in the beginning to do this. But again, it's not an easy business. You have to have a lot of different tools, and you can't just hire everybody in the beginning to help you because you don't have money.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, you kind of have to do everything on your own and then build from there. So, and
sounds like it's hard.
It definitely is, right? But after a couple of years, it gets easier and easier. I always tell everybody too, when you buy these businesses, and I think it's like everybody else too, when you're starting out, it's like you have a baby. You're with that baby 24 hours a day. You might get to sleep 2 hours a day, okay? But you're working all the time, right? Then you hit like year 2 of your business, right? And it's like toddler stages. You're like, okay, I can back off a little, but I can't go too far. Like you're still on all the time, right? Then you hit year 5. You're like, great, they're walking. They're not going to bang their head. I can actually take a weekend off, take some break, and have more of that work-life balance, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like a business is almost like having a baby or having kids.
That's a great comparison.
It's crazy, but and then I'm year 11 in right now. So I have a really good team in place. I can take time off, but I still work hard? Oh yeah, all the time. You can't take your finger off it.
Your business is almost in middle school.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about it sticking its finger in a socket.
Exactly.
But it'll still do stupid things if you don't watch it.
Yes, exactly. So,
oh my gosh.
It does get easier as time goes on.
Yes.
I know Omar and I are entrepreneurs in the building world.
Yeah.
And I know Omar is having a lot of fun with that.
It's overwhelming in a lot of ways because this is an arena where we don't have a specific entrepreneur to work under.
True.
And we don't have a specific mentor because development is something you just throw yourself into and start doing. But using all our other skills that we gained over the years, we apply it to this. And every day it is a new challenge that we have to
And
figure out.
that brings up a good point because we have each other in this venture.
Yeah.
So imagine if we didn't have each other to bounce off of, I think it would be a lot harder.
It would be.
And also, if you're going into something, that's great because I guess that's a big advantage of going into a franchise, right? They'll let you shadow somebody. If you're going into something that is not a franchise business,
good point. Yeah.
How do you approach somebody and say, "Oh, you're an entrepreneur who's just starting out. Let me shadow you."
So that's a great point. So he touched up upon you have to find somebody who's on the same wavelength or at least an upward trend. So in real estate, initially, it's hard to find a mentor. It's hard to find anyone to tell you what to do, where to get started, so on and so forth. But what helped me most was I had at least 1 or 2 people who had the same goals and ambitions as me. And when I'm going through challenges, it helps to know someone else who's going through the same thing and getting results. And then you bounce off motivations off each other. So not necessarily that they're mentoring you or you're working under them, but to see them get through the challenges that you're facing, a lot of times that's enough to give you that conviction that, all right, if that person could do it, I could do it too.
Right, and it holds you accountable.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a mentor who's above you.
Just someone on the same level.
That's going on the journey with you.
And they're getting results where you might be stuck and you're like, all right, well, if that person figured it out, I could figure it out.
No, I think this is huge too. Because I also think being an entrepreneur is a lonely lifestyle.
Oh, yeah.
You're by yourself a lot, right? So having each other to bounce it off is great. In a franchise, you've got more people. It's up to you if you want to utilize them or not, though, right? So I even take it to a next step. I go and I'll have a breakfast meeting once a month with like a designer, a painter, an organizer, anybody that's in the house like I am. And we talk business, we refer each other, but we also talk like what's working, what's not, because there's so many things you can learn from each other as business owners, right?
Yeah.
So like I remember meeting with one of the designers and she was like, oh, I don't get people to pay me before I go to the job. I'm like, what? Why not? Like I take 100% up front. She's like,
wow.
Yeah, so things like that helps your cash flow in your business. You're doing the job, you need to get paid or take 80% up front. So just talking little business, nuances like that really help each other, right? And also it's nice to go out and be like, again, you're lonely. It's a lonely journey. So to have a breakfast meeting, go talk to other people about business, doesn't matter if it's your business or someone else's, but someone who's on the same wavelength, it's huge. Eric and I, we talk business all the time, right? We talk business more than we talk, and we're friends. We've known each other for a very long time, but we're always talking business.
So good, because that means it's a tax write-off.
There you go.
Exactly.
Genius.
Yeah. That's really why we hang out,
It also, you actually, like our friendship has developed over the years because we have such an interesting commonality. So it's great to have that connector. It's great to have someone who you can bounce ideas off of. I don't know that I actually had the opportunity to build my first project by myself, and I chose to build it with Omar instead, because I just knew that for me, you know, being an entrepreneur of over 30 years at this point, it's just more fun to have when you're going through something really big. Yeah. Sometimes it's more fun to have that partner, and it just gives you more stability
and energy, right?
Yes.
And all
allows you to do a lot more. And you know, you touch upon a really good point. It is a lonely journey.
Yes.
And I remember back when I was a broker of an office, I was recruiting realtors, and majority of realtors had this idea that's all team oriented. You have someone hand holding you throughout the entire process. And they would tell me, well, what's the team structure like? What's the office like? What's the culture like? What do I do on a daily basis? What's my schedule like? And I had to tell them, this is a pretty independent journey that you're taking. We're here to support you, but you have to understand that it's not what you might think it is. You're not having fun every day.
Mm-hmm. Gary Vee said entrepreneurship is like getting kicked in the groin over and over again, like 85% of the time. Mm-hmm. Would you say that is accurate?
100%. Yeah. That's why it's so important to build your network and have your people, because guess what? You have failures. Things happen. Like, oof, that was an expensive mistake. It hurts some days, right? So you need to pick up the phone and call somebody and be like, hey, this is what happened. And they can, they can like talk you off the ledge some days, right? Or just like, hey, what's going on with business? You need to have your people in place to talk to, and if you don't, it's very hard. Yep. When new franchises come in, I always check in on them. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? They're like, I'm crazy busy. I'm like, okay, but always like, did you do this? Did you do this? Like, come hang out, come up, make sure you come to our breakfast meetings. You need a group of people, and people don't realize it that first year because they're like spinning. You're so busy, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I'm all by myself doing this and I don't have the right things in place. So you need that group of people, and everybody I've talked to says the same thing. It's super important. You need that social interaction too, right? Otherwise, it's lonely. Like, think about those COVID times when we were all like stuck by ourselves, right? Oh my God. That's like almost like being an entrepreneur sometimes.
Yeah.
Just like
you're,
it's that
you're
quiet.
perpetually in COVID times.
Right. If you don't reach out and find people, your people.
And to your point about getting together with people, and you guys weigh in on this too, is it important to have things pre-scheduled in advance? Because I feel like it's really easy to say like, oh, I should meet up with people and go over the business and, figure out X, Y, and Z, or meet up with fellow franchisees. But if you don't have that scheduled, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. I have 2 meetings next week. I have a networking with people who are not franchises that I work with, and then I actually have a breakfast meeting with 12 franchises that we meet once a month in Paramus. So they have to be on the calendar.
It's my town.
Yes. You can come join us for breakfast. But you have to have it on the calendar, and it's super important. So my thing is I always book 4 a month. I need 4 networking things a month.
That's smart. What do you guys think of that?
I think it's great. I tend to do that too, more off referrals. In our business, we need funding a lot of times and just work with capital investors. So that's a great way to go out and meet people for that purpose, or deal structuring and so on and so forth.
Eric's a networking unicorn.
He is.
It's just like
that
networking just vomits every day. Every day is a network. But if I didn't have certain specific scheduled meetings, it would be a challenge for me, because my days are so salesy, and then I have a lot of operation stuff from the position that I'm in, that my schedule constantly changes. And if I don't have a set time, it won't happen.
Yeah. One point that I wanted to make before we go on to his next tip was, I think if you're trying to find an entrepreneur that you want to link yourself to, you need to make sure you're providing some sort of value, right?
Sure.
If you're not going to go do this journey along with somebody at your own level, how do you provide value? Like, so if somebody wants to come in, have you be their mentor, what are you looking for them to provide?
For me specifically?
Yeah.
I would say either an energy, or willingness to help me develop ideas, or I'm looking for a different perspective. I'm not looking for someone who's going to yes me to death. So it has to be something. I like challenging relationships that are based on mutual respect, but there has to be an interest level. Like, I don't want to be talking to somebody who wants me to be their mentor, where I have to repeat something 3 times. Like, if you're here and I'm spending the time with you, like a word should half come out, and you should be like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get the other half of the word. What was it? Like, you should be on me with every word that comes out of my mouth.
Yeah, I think a key part of networking initially is, at least a lot of people, myself included, have this misconception that initially you have to go out to every networking events and meet people. But if you don't have something of value to present and build on, you're going out to meet people and having pretty trivial conversations for the most part. So I think it helps initially to get started and gain some traction on your own, and then go out and connect based on what you've picked up.
Network, build contacts, relationships. whatever you're doing, everything to you is just relationship, 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 relationship.
So I think that goes along with kind of the point that we were just making in terms of just getting out there, networking, right? Is there anything that you want to add to this? It's obviously vital to any business.
In real estate, we say location, location, location. I think in sales, relationship, relationship, relationship.
Yeah.
What else can I say?
Work 80 hours a week for 12 to 24 months and see if you can do it or not. While I worked at Bally's, I worked 80 hours every single week as an employee. And they only paid me for, $6 an hour or $7 an hour or $5 an hour, whatever the number was, because it was commissions. But I worked 80, 90 hours per week. I was at the gym from morning till night. Every day I was at the gym. You know why? Because I wanted to see if I had what it takes to work.
It sounds hard, but I think it's necessary, right? It makes sense.
100%. This goes back to my baby theory in the beginning of the business. You're working all the time to get this off the ground.
Yeah.
I have new people that come and they're like, I'm going on vacation. I'm like, you just bought a business. Wait, what? They're like, oh yeah, I'm going away for a month. I'm like, how? What? Like, I don't understand. So if you don't have that dedication, you're not going to put that time in, don't bother.
They just don't have the drive. So maybe those are the people that are happy with $75,000 a year. I don't know.
Yeah. Or they may be used to a schedule from 9 to 5. Once you step out of that, you have to be clocked in.
Yeah.
You have to be available.
And have you guys ever heard the saying, if you want extraordinary results, you have to do extraordinary things and work extraordinary hours?
Yes.
Like if you're going to work ordinary hours and put in ordinary effort, you're going to have an ordinary life.
Yeah.
And who wants an ordinary life?
And listen, an ordinary life is great. As long as you're happy, that's all that matters, right? But you need to, I think, to your points, you get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah.
And if you have an itch to do more, you have to do something about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because then those are the people I think that end up getting depressed and wondering what went wrong with their life and this and that. It's the people that know where they want to be, but they're not willing to put in the work or connect the dots to get there.
I'll also say too, what we do and what you guys, like, it's different. Is anything the same every day you do? No.
Hell no.
Every day is different and exciting.
Yeah.
So you can't really get too bored. I get bored really quick. That's why I was saying I can't sit in my office desk for more than 4 hours. I got to sit there for 4 hours and then I go work out because I get bored. But
I can't even do 4 hours.
okay, start with 2, build from there. But it's never a boring day. That's for sure. Everything's always different. You're always talking and meeting new people, and that's part of the fun thing.
Research. Learn how to research and learn fast. Learn how to research. I think this thing about researching, again, that's a whole different thing that we can probably do on how to research something, right? Could be an episode. I think researching is a skill. You got to research who's this connected to, who does this guy know, what's this thing all about, what is this product all about, what is this guy, why did they come out with this, why did this happen, what does this law have to do with this, you got to learn how to research, okay? And you get to the bottom of something like 100%. This guy's connected to this guy. Now I get why this guy's saying this.
When I first started in real estate, just finding deals, I told everyone I'm like a detective at this point because the amount of work and effort it takes to find deals, analyze them, understand the history behind it, and what to do to solve problems, it's nonstop research and learning for the first year, 2 years, and really it doesn't stop.
Especially the type of real estate that you first got into, because you were really diving into short sales and foreclosures, right?
Distress sales, hunting down homeowners, dealing with the banks.
Bandit signs,
and to connect all the dots, there's no manual out there that teaches you how to do these things. So you have to really set some time aside and spend some boring hours in front of the computer to understand what to even start doing and then build on that.
Knowledge is power. The more information you get into your head, the more you're going to be able to share, and the more resources or the more resourceful you will be to other people. So I'm all about the research and reading. So it doesn't have to be sitting there and Googling ideas. It could just be reading articles. Anything that's in your field that will give you knowledge and talking points for people. Super important.
Gives you confidence as well,
Yeah.
and that really comes
Great
across
point.
in sales. So we're always continuing with education because in the blind business, everything's always changing. Automation, it changes every year. This year, as of June 1st, there will be no cords on window treatments because of child safety strangulations.
Wow.
So there's major things always going on. So we're always learning, and you have to always keep up with the times and be innovative. Like I was at a client yesterday, and I showed her some motorized one. She's like, I did window treatments in my other house 2 years ago. I never saw that. I'm like, well, it wasn't available 2 years ago. So this is how things change, right? In the beginning, when we got into this business, there is so much to this business to learn. Blind, shutters, shades, drapery, motorization. I was like, whew. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be the drapery guru. That's what I'm going to do. So I spent 3 years, and I was like, I'm going to be the #1 expert in drapery in my field. And now I'm like the window fashionista, and that's what I love to do.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah.
but I came
We
from a
should call you
fashion
that.
background.
Yeah.
That actually is, that's my little tag name. You
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Love that.
So I was a fashionista, now I'm the window fashionista. But I do really high-end, beautiful things, and that's my passion, though. That's what I like. But it took me a long time to learn that, too. So it doesn't happen overnight, and you got to keep learning. Always.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And staying on top of your research and learning, it also automatically kind of makes you an authority in your field, right? So you
100%.
become the go-to person.
yes, that's exactly it.
You're my go-to for window treatment.
Yeah, I know that. That's true. He's always talking about you.
Back in the days in '99 when I worked at Bally's, there was no Facebook. I think Facebook was, Paul, was Facebook 03 or 04? I want to say February of 04 is when I want to say Facebook was. So there was nothing. MySpace, I think, was 01, 02. I don't know when MySpace was, but there was nothing at Bally's. So there was no way to build an audience. But the way I build an audience, I build it with everybody that was a member at the gym. I build an audience with all the people that worked at different Bally's. I build a relationship there, but build an audience. Build an audience on social media. Build an audience on Snap, on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Twitter. Figure out a way to build an audience with your voice.
That's what we're doing right now.
Exactly.
That's the new currency right now. So we're all on that same building process right now.
Yeah, and I'm pretty passionate about feeling like if any businesses or people that want to build a personal brand, if they're not on top of this now with all the tools that we have in front of us, they're going to miss out in the long run, because there are plenty of people that are taking advantage of it. And anybody that's kind of sitting on the sidelines and ignoring it or thinking that it's just going to be a passing fad is way off.
They're going to totally lose it.
Yeah.
So last year, my #1 was repeats. #2 was referrals. #3 was Instagram for lead generation.
Wow.
So
Nice.
that's huge. And I tell everybody, you need to get on it.
Yeah.
Instagram, Facebook, figure out what platform you want if you're not going to do all of them, because it is time consuming, or hire somebody to do it. But exactly what you guys are doing here. This is huge. So you have to. And it's easy. You don't have to pay anybody to do it either.
Right.
So it's a very inexpensive way to get it across.
Yeah.
And
Well, Eric
to
does.
do. Most people do, okay? But it's the best way to get organic traffic too.
Yeah.
So
I think that part of the building your audience part, though, is if you're not passionate about what you're doing,
bingo.
it's going to come off
Yeah.
as fake. So if you choose a franchise or if you choose a career to get in, try to have some passion towards it or learn to love it and then deliver it. Because for me, I live, breathe, eat, sleep, all that stuff, real estate. And
Really? I had no idea.
You do,
Shocker.
yeah.
What?
and it comes out that way. So when I meet people, it's just a natural. They gravitate to me with questions, and it's very easy for me to build an audience that way. But if you ask me to talk about sports or cooking, like, forget about it. I couldn't do it.
Wine. You know
I could
about
drink.
wine.
I know how to drink wine.
Well, this is actually really funny. So I was at Eric's house on Saturday, and he had some furniture delivered, and these guys who were installing everything were asking him real estate tips.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because they're like, what do you do? We've been here before. So
Yeah.
next thing I walk downstairs, and it's a whole real estate conversation going on. But that just shows how passionate you're about your business, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it
that
is.
you're 100% right. You got to be passionate about it.
They were young and they wanted to make money, and I was trying to help them.
Did you sell them a class?
Yeah, exactly. You added them to your audience.
We did, actually.
Good.
They're followers now.
Nice.
I told them that they should read Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was the first book.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is important. It's a great book.
I think I agree. Building an audience is where it starts, and it starts with referrals and just through your course of business. But with today's tools of social media, it's something everyone needs to be on.
I have a friend who's a real estate agent, and he makes not great videos or any videos that you would think are worth anything. And he said that he's gotten, I forget exactly how many leads, but 95% of his leads last year came from these Instagram videos. And just posting what he was doing already. So a big key to building your audience is just whatever you're doing, just record it and post it. And some of the videos may get no traction. Eventually you'll get that one that hits off. And then
one referral.
Yeah, you get one referral. How much is that one referral worth, especially in real estate? I'm sure blinds is also.
It's crazy. No, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And that's what everybody stresses out over, right? Just post it. It's content, especially with stories. I posted something this morning on outdoor solar screens. I had 12 people in my inbox asking about it already. I haven't had a chance to reply to them yet.
Yeah,
So,
that's
but
great.
yeah, because they're like, oh, wait, I need that. Oh, wait, I need that. So it's like, just, you need to
I need
post
an outdoor solar screen.
I know.
Yeah.
But don't think about it too much. You just got to post and do it. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
As you're going through this and you're making a decision to go here, start becoming self-aware and aligned about what your own strengths and weaknesses are. Like, figure that part out. And you can say, you know what, I never knew I was, like for me, I never knew I was going to be good in sales until I started working at Bally's. I mean, I used to sell at 10 years old. But I really started realizing I can be pretty good at the sales thing, right? And then I started realizing pressure, what happens in pressure. You know, deadlines, when we have numbers we have to hit. In sales, we had closeouts on Thursdays. I'm okay with this. There was another guy, one of my managers I work with. He was my boss. He couldn't hack it himself, but he was my boss. Great guy, a sweetheart. One thing I'll never forget about him, he always told me, he says, Pat, you curse too much, because I had just got out in the Army, so every other word out of my mouth was a curse word. He said, you got to slow this thing down. I'd be selling and cursing nonstop, so he would always work with me on that. But I remember it was Thursday closeouts, and we haven't hit our numbers yet. He would be panicking. There's a guy named Tony Wilson would call in, and no one wanted to pick up Tony's call, but I would pick up the call. Tony, what's going on? Why are you bothering us? It's not done yet. Let me finish up my day. Can I call you back at midnight? Yes. They didn't want to answer the phone call. Then boom, we would get 2-3 sales. How? I'd go in the walkway. I'd go in the gym. I'd walk around. I would say, hey, how you doing? How's work? By the way, who do you know right now that's looking for a membership? Where are you from? Why are you working out alone? Why don't you call your friends? Well, let's get them to become a member, man. Who can you call right now can come to the gym? Tell them to come to the gym. I would go through the members that are working out, and I would get them to call their friends to come to the gym, and I'd sell a membership that night, and boom, we would hit our numbers, right? But it was you kind of figuring out how to make that part happen. So you learn your strengths and industries. I liked sales. I liked numbers. I started looking at which industries gave life, good life. Like, I saw too many guys in real estate that were still selling in their 30th year and working on Sundays. I saw way too many guys in mortgages that were still selling. I started looking at stocks where, because I was a Series 7 guy, market would go up. It was great. Market would go on. They were afraid of answering the phone calls and all this stuff. I looked at pharmaceutical sales. If you got a good drug and you work with somebody, it was good because the doctors would constantly order. There was so many different things I looked at. And then I realized I like insurance. So I chose insurance. Why? I saw guys 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, good personal life. Kids went to private schools, good life, a lot of money. You know, you had an opportunity to make real good money, like 5 million a year, 10 million a year, some even more than that. So that opportunity was attractive. But you'll learn it here.
So we're all going to get into insurance sales. Is that what that means? So strength and industry. What do you think? It makes a lot of sense, obviously, but it's so you're figuring out what your strength is. He figured out that sales was his strength, and then just as important or more importantly is like figuring out the ballpark that you're going to play in, right? Yeah. Because if you choose an industry that's playing on a little league field, you're never going to make major league plays, right? Yeah. And there's a good saying that if you want to hit home runs, you have to be in a field that allows you to hit home runs, and sales is one of them. Did you put any thought into that before? So I think it's safe to say everybody knew that they had a passion for sales and a strength in sales, right? And that kind of led you to your spot.
But depending on what you sell.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not going to sell anything.
Sure.
Agreed. Yeah.
So when we were looking at franchises, we looked at a flooring company. I'm not selling floors. Sorry. This is not going to work for me. Okay. We were looking at a couple of other things. And even when we came across the blinds, I was like, it's blinds. But they're like, we have all the soft fashions and the drapery. And that spoke to my 15 years in fashion and merchandising and, playing with fabrics. And I got excited. Yeah. So that's what got me excited. So you still have to be in an area that you're passionate about and like. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I could go and sell anything, but am I going to be passionate about it for the next 5 or 10 years? Probably not.
Right.
So
that's a great point.
It's got to be something I like to do and I like to sell.
But
I would like selling real estate. That'd be fun.
Well, you've come to the right place. But how do you know
I've been pushing you for that thing.
How do you know that passion is going to be burning for 5 to 10 years? Like, how did you know that this was something that you wanted to move forward with and it would be there down the line?
Because it's around design, and I'm obsessed with anything design, interior, fashion, everything.
And you've always been that way.
I've always been that way. I wanted to be a fashion designer at 9 years old.
Got it.
So it's always been in my blood. So I just knew anything design and creative is where I needed to be.
I think the real secret for Sonie is that because she's in this industry with window treatments, that she has the opportunity to change the window treatments in her house every season at a discount. So that's
Comes
part of the
natural.
motivation.
Yeah.
Every 2 years, things get switched out. So,
Sure,
but
the
also
fringe
it's
benefits.
my showroom, and it's
We
my
get the
you know,
leftovers.
yeah.
She's like, hey, do you want these blinds? They've been on my window for a year. Yes.
Yeah.
That's great. And did you know why you wanted to go into real estate versus any other industry?
So I started initially, I didn't know what my strengths were, right? I didn't know what type of sales to even do. I just listened to these different tips on what industry you should get into if you want to make money and you want to do well in life. And everything pointed at sales. But once I got into sales, it's like, what type of sales can you get into? I can't sell blinds. I can't sell window finishings and everything you do. I can't compete against you, right? But it took me a while to figure out that if I get into an industry that's consultative sales, I could do that. Medical sales is not networking. It's really, you're sitting down with the doctor and you're selling him on a solution to something he may need. And it's a much more
And that was your
one-on-one.
first field.
Yeah.
You're
So
a
it took me a
medical
while to realize that,
sales
So
though,
you like
because
the details behind stuff, the numbers or
the problem
the
solving,
scientific reason
yeah,
why.
If I believe in my product, I should be able to sell it to you. Otherwise, I shouldn't be selling that product. But it took me a while to realize that, because most sales training examples, it's very extroverted. You have to be out there. You have to network. But I don't think that applies to every industry, because some industries you really have to narrow into who your target is, figure out how to reach them, and get quality time with them to sell them on a solution. And it's a different type of sales than being, in a networking mode all the time. So.
Right. Yep.
Death ground, you got to put yourself in situations where your back's against the wall. Let me tell you what that is. Let me tell you what it is, okay? Death ground situations before you become an entrepreneur, because death ground for entrepreneurs, every day, baby, you're on the death ground. Every single day, you are on death ground as an entrepreneur, but even more when you're a startup entrepreneur. So take a deadline. That seems crazy. Go hit it. Say yes and take responsibility for certain projects and go hit it. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Take that deadline that no one wants to touch because they're afraid of coming through. I'm at an event and everybody's asking me, what do you think about the transition? Somebody got promoted, somebody came down, and one guy retired. What do you think about this whole move? You know what I said? In front of everybody and in front of the guy that works directly. I said, I want you to go tell him, because that's exactly how I feel and he needs to know this. Said, what do you think about the new promotion of this guy? I said, I'm a little concerned. He said, why is that? I said, he plays it too safe. I said, what do you mean he plays it too safe? I said, you see, in this industry, you can get, after 25 years of being in a business, you can get a $300,000 a year salary. You go to a $400,000, $500,000 a year salary, and you play it so safe because you don't want to ruffle any feathers and take any risks, because if you do, you could possibly be fired. Whereas a guy like a Bob Ben Moshe, former CEO of AIG, that if you go watch some of this guy's interviews, gutsy guy. I've seen this guy in rooms talking, cursing every other word, just a feisty guy that went to the government, asked for $183 billion from the government to save AIG, and then comes back and says, not only am I going to give the taxpayer the money back, but I'm also going to give him interest. And no other company that went and got money from the insurance government did that. He gave the government $183 billion back plus $23 billion of interest, I think 4 years later.
I've never heard of the term death ground before. Have any of you?
No.
Not that specifically, but the idea of not having a safety net and sink or swim is definitely part of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So that point got me all nervous now about the whole
He made it seem
entrepreneur
like
world.
it's such a good thing to do, but
Yeah, he was so excited about it. I don't know if it's because he's coming from the military, but do you feel what he's saying? Like, set a deadline, make it happen.
to his original point of saving, when you're in corporate, you don't have the time or the energy to do a second business all the time, right? So for me personally, my escape from corporate was, how do I leave and pursue something else if I don't have time? So what I did is I saved up, similar to what he said in his second point. And once I reached a number that I was comfortable with, I decided to quit my corporate job. And at that point, I'm like, all right, I'm either going to burn through my savings or this is going to work out.
Right. So
And
you're at that
pressure-
point where you're drawing a line in the sand.
Yeah. And it's not as fun as he made it seem. I was nervous as hell. It was nerve-wracking because as soon as you quit, your monthly income stops, monthly expenses start coming off your savings, and you have to get results. And it took me a while, and I almost went broke. And that's common. I didn't realize that most people in the entrepreneurial pursuit do come close to going broke. It's just part of it. And when I was in it, I'm like, oh my God, my life's going to be over.
Over at 24. Come on.
No, at that point I was 27, and but it's a terrible position to be in. You're at the prime of your life at that time. You don't want to be broke. You just left something good to try something. It's not working out. You don't know if it's going to work out, and it takes a lot of time to come back up once you burn through your savings. So you're always thinking, maybe I should have stayed at my job. Maybe I should have waited longer. Maybe I shouldn't have had this overconfidence in myself because nothing seems to be working out right now.
Do you have regrets?
No.
All right, there you go.
At the time, I was, you have to go
It's
through.
scary.
It
At
is.
the time, it's very, very stressful.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
It's nerve-wracking.
Yes.
Especially when you consider just these numbers. 40% of businesses fail within the first 3 years, 50% within 5 years, 66% within 10 years, 73% of businesses fail within 15 years, and nearly 80% of businesses fail within 20 years.
Wow.
That's crazy. I
I
didn't
thought it
know
was-
that part. I
I-
thought I was doing
yeah.
well. I thought I
Yeah.
hit the 10-year mark.
Yeah.
Yay!
I actually
nuts.
thought it was higher than that because we went to a Tony Robbins seminar, and they said like 95% of businesses fail. That's the one thing I remember him saying. I don't remember the time period, but most people who start really end up going back to their work, their 9-to-5 job, or it just doesn't work out.
I think people fizzle out if they can't achieve the financial goals that they want.
Yeah.
After a couple of years, then they're just like, they just give up on it. But
But I also think they get depressed and down.
Yes.
Like it's easy if you keep getting crushed and making mistakes and not making money. You get in this hole and it's really hard to dig out, right? That's why I think your network is so important too, to have other
Yeah.
people to talk to about everything on a daily basis, right? Or I actually approached you a couple of weeks ago and I asked you a question. I don't know if you remember what it was, but I implemented that into my business the next day, and it was like a huge help.
no
Yes.
no recollection.
It was a cash flow thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I'm like, let me see what Eric does with this situation. And I asked
Yeah.
you something, and I was like, okay.
See that?
So,
People do listen to me.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
but you
there's-
gotta
Smart guy.
always,
Yeah.
things change too from year to year. You might have things are different. Like we came off COVID, where COVID was COVID, everything died, right? It was crazy. We moved to virtual consultations. You had to navigate, right? And then it was boom, the real estate market. Everybody's selling houses. So our business was on fire, right? For the last 3 years, we finally slowed down a little bit this past year, back to almost numbers what they were 2017, 2018, right? So it's a different business again. So you gotta reevaluate and shift things around compared to what you were doing a couple of years ago. So you're always moving things and changing things. It never stays the same. That's why having other people to talk to is huge, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So it's like the death ground, right? That's what we called it, death ground?
Was it? Yeah.
Death ground. So it's
Yeah.
I've already blocked it
I
out
think
because
it's
it's
the one.
traumatizing.
I think death ground comes and goes. I don't think that it's something that is there forever, and I don't think that it's something that's never there.
Agreed.
So as you're building your business, yes, in the beginning, you may have your 6 months or 12 months of cash flow. Then you may hit your death ground, right? And then all of a sudden you're successful for great, doing well for 5 years, but then you decide to expand because you're not happy with your cash flow or the amount of money you're taking home. So you want to double it. So you think if I increase my business times 2 or double my territory times 2, I'm going to double my revenue. That doesn't always happen. So there are times in life when you're going to keep repeating the death ground kind of feel. And I think that sometimes it's fun, but I think as you get older with more responsibilities, you don't want to be there as much. So you don't take as many risks going forward.
And I'm sure over time you get hardened to the things that used to turn your stomach earlier on in entrepreneurship, right? Like just the things that would scare the heck out of you in the beginning. I'm sure as time goes on, you kind of get more comfortable with the.
you learn to sleep better at night, knowing you've already been there and you know how to get through
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So this has been a great discussion. To round this out, we want to leave our viewers with 3 main tips for anybody who's an aspiring entrepreneur. And then we'll kind of go around and see if we left anything out here. 1 is believe in yourself and your vision, right? And know that times are going to get hard and you have to fight through that. 2 is embrace risk and failure as opportunities for growth, because no matter what you do in entrepreneurship, you're going to be hit with failure, right? Like it's kind of like going up to bat at a baseball game.
Yeah.
Like the Hall of Famers, if you're hitting a ball 20% of the time,
Yeah.
you're still in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So it's having the guts to take those swings, and then finally building a strong support network.
Yep.
Like you were really mentioning
Yeah,
is
I think it's
important,
huge.
right?
Yeah.
And anybody have any additional final tips that we haven't mentioned?
I'll say one thing: attitude. Attitude
yeah.
is everything, because
Sure.
you
Yeah.
go into this like gung ho, so excited, right? But you got to keep that going and that momentum. If you're like, hey, you want to buy blinds from me? Like, okay, who's going to buy blinds from me? You got to keep the positive attitude going, right?
Yeah.
And your network and your people. So attitude is huge, right? So I think just with everything you do, attitude is huge with your business.
I think people who are looking to make the leap into entrepreneurship, there's usually something that they've done in their life or in their past that gave them some sort of conviction. And they're like, if I could do this at any point in my life, maybe there's something more I should be expecting out of myself. And I think if you keep digging into that gives you the energy to pursue, make these decisions that are unknown.
It's the best way to take control of your life. I believe starting early before you have kids is even better, but I wish I did it when I was younger. I spent the first 10 years working in a family business, which sort of was entrepreneurial, but it wasn't my entrepreneurial. But no regrets. And I have the stomach for everything now. You know, that death ground or whatever, none of that stuff bothers me. I can handle any challenge, any financial disaster, all that stuff. The only thing now, after doing this for 30 plus years, is loyalty. That's the only place that I have issues. If somebody screws me over on a loyalty area, that's something that will still affect me. Other than that, nothing else matters. I can get through it all.
And that's understandable. So Sonie Skogerson
You got it.
Budget Blinds.
Fashionista.
Businesswoman. How can people get in touch with you and just let everybody know what your business is exactly before we sign off?
So I own 3 Budget Blinds territories in Bergen County, Budget Blinds of Paramus, Westwood, and Ridgewood. We are a shop-at-home concept, so we come to you. I don't have a store. So I come to your house, I design, I measure.
That's great.
I definitely don't install.
Right.
I have installers.
You have a right for that.
You have muscles for install. Come on.
I don't even know how to use the drill, but I can make everything look really pretty and really good and solve your problems, right? So Instagram is the best way to get me. I'm Budget Blinds NJ, like New Jersey on Instagram.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching this episode. Now don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And we'll see you next time.